Yo, what's going on? It's your man, the Grass Ninja, and we're going to be tackling one of the bigger plot holes, one of the crazier things that ever happened in Naruto Shippuden's 4th Great Ninja War arc. And you already saw the thumbnail. We're going to be tackling the blind Susanoo incident, the incredible feat pulled off by Madara Uchiha when he escaped Shukaku and Gaara's Grand Sand Mausoleum seal by using the Susanoo to break free of this pyramid ceiling jutsu when he didn't even have eyes in his skull, alright? So there's definitely a bunch of instances around the Uchiha using their Susanoo without their Sharingan, but Madara literally didn't have eyes, so like how was he able to use a Mangekyou Sharingan ability without a Mangekyou Sharingan even in his body, alright? So how can Uchiha use Susanoo with no eyes? Is this a plot hole, or is there a reason for this? Did Kishimoto actually plan for this to be the case all along? And then at the end of the video, we're going to basically figure out if Sasuke, with his one Sharingan, will be able to use his Susanoo in the Boruto era. Like, will they decide to retcon this, or is this something founded in the lore and the inspiration that the Susanoo comes from, for that matter, alright? So in order to explain the Susanoo and the whole crazy plot hole, possible plot hole, by the way, that Madara had displayed to us with the blind Susanoo feat, we have to delve into the origins of the Susanoo god, the inspiration for the ability that we have in Naruto. So if you're unaware, a lot of things in Naruto are either inspired from Hinduism or Japanese mythology, things of that nature, right? And the Susanoo is one of those things. So to explain the Susanoo, we have to go into the creation story from the Japanese mythology, alright? So according to Japanese mythos, the creation of the universe began just like most stories. The universe is born, right? In a flash of fire or whatever, the universe is born. And with the universe comes these primordial gods, these primordial beings, right? Now, these primordial gods, they create the heavens and the earth, right? Primordial just means during the existence of time itself, during the creation of time, during the beginning, right? So anything that's primordial just means it was there when there was stuff to be there, during the existence of existence itself. So primordial gods, born with the universe, create the heavens and the earth. And when they get to creating the earth, they create two deities that they'll have watch over the earth, and they're responsible for filling it with everything that will be. That goes from physical masses like continents, the oceans, to like abstract concepts and ideologies. These two deities, created by the primordial gods, are tasked with filling the earth with everything that will ever be on the planet, right? Now, these two deities are known as Izanagi, the male deity, and Izanami, the female deity, right? So Izanagi and Izanami are created by primordial gods, and they're tasked with creating everything that will be on the earth. Now, Izanami and Izanagi, as they travel through the planet and they check everything out, they decide that they should marry and that they should be together. And in their union, they basically get down and dirty, you know what I'm saying? They get busy. So Izanagi and Izanami, they marry, they get busy, and in that action, they end up creating the first land masses, which are the islands of Japan, okay? And in their procreation, Izanami becomes pregnant, right? So as she's pregnant, she's carrying one of the first new gods, the first children of Izanagi and Izanami, right? Now, she gives birth to her firstborn child, which ends up being Kagatsuchi, the fire god, right? Now, Kagatsuchi is born, but unfortunately, Izanami cannot survive the birthing process, and she ends up passing away after giving birth to Kagatsuchi, right? Now, as she passes away, she ends up in the underworld. Now, this isn't over because she has divine status. She's a god. So Izanagi, realizing this, decides to travel to the underworld in order to rescue his wife so that he can return to the realm of the living with her. So as he travels to the underworld, he finds Izanami. But unfortunately, when he finds her, it's too late because Izanami has already eaten the fruits of the underworld. And after she's eaten the fruits of the underworld, she has become corrupted by its dark energy and she loses her divinity. So due to the corruption that Izanami has suffered from the underworld, she no longer has her divinity. She is no longer a god. And she has become one with the underworld, right? Now, fearful of the same thing happening to him, Izanagi, realizing he can no longer bring his wife back to the realm of the living, refuses to join her in this hellscape world of the underworld. And as she's angry that her man's is betraying her and leaving her in the underworld, she decides to command all the spirits and all the dark entities of the underworld to attack Izanagi and kill him. That way he will be forced to stay in the underworld with her. So Izanagi has no choice but to flee, and as Izanagi escapes the underworld, he seals up the entrance so that no dark spirits and that Izanami cannot escape, and that nobody on the planet will be able to reopen the gates to the underworld. Now, after he had fled and after he finally escaped the underworld, Izanagi was fearful of being corrupted and contaminated by the filth of the underworld, and he doesn't want to lose his divine status just as Izanami did. So Izanagi prepares a cleansing ritual. He begins conducting a cleansing ritual for himself, which is like this bath, this ritualistic bath that he prepares. Now, while he's cleansing himself in this ritualistic bath, Izanagi begins giving birth and creating all of the different gods that are inside of or that reside in the Japanese mythos, right? So I'm not going to name all of them, but as he's bathing and as he's cleansing himself of these impurities, all these gods and all these other entities are being created off of his body. So he ends up creating like the god of love. He creates the god of wisdom, the god of harvest and food, right? So as he's cleansing himself, all these beings are being born. And as he's towarding the end of his cleansing ritual, he begins to realize that he has lost the one companion that was supposed to be with him eternally. He has lost the love of his life, Izanami, and as he mourns this realization and as he grieves, he begins to cry, he begins to weep, and born from the tears that fall from his left eye is the god Amaterasu, who later becomes the sun god, or the god of the sun. And born from the tears that fall from his right eye came the god of the moon, Tsukuyomi, right? And finally, the final entity that's born from Izanagi weeping and suffering from this pain of loss, born from the drippings of his nose, came the storm god, god of the seas, the Susanoo. Right? So these three gods are the final children of Izanagi. We have Amaterasu, born of the left eye, god of the sun, Tsukuyomi, born from the right eye, god of the moon, and Susanoo, born from his nose, god of the seas. These are the final creations of Izanagi. These are the final deities that were born from Izanagi, the creator of all things. Now, if you are aware with your Naruto information, a lot of this sounds crazy. We had Kagatsuchi, Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi, Izanagi, Izanami, and the Susanoo. All these are Uchiha abilities that were inspired from the creation story in the Japanese mythos. Now, I'm not going to break down the entire Japanese mythos for you. I'll leave a video in the pinned comment and in the description where you can get a more in-depth understanding of the Japanese mythos for yourself. But when it comes to the blind Susanoo feat that Madara pulled off, technically speaking, the Susanoo is not born from the eyes, right? It was born from the nose, which means it's not attached to the eyes itself. It's born from within, right? When Izanagi went through his suffering and his grieving period over his wife and the sadness that overwhelmed him, these three gods were born. Now, if we make a connection to how the Uchiha awaken their Mangekyou, it's a very similar process. They lose a loved one, they grieve, and they mourn the loss of a loved person or a loved individual, and in that suffering, a new chakra is developed inside of them, which transforms their eyes into Mangekyou Sharingan. So the first thing that is created is the eyes. But the new chakra that is created that transform their eyes should remain. So this new chakra that transforms their eyes into Mangekyou Sharingan could be the chakra that's left over even if they go blind, even if their eyes are removed, which is what forms the Susanoo, right? Because the Susanoo is just an entity of chakra that takes form, right? So if this new chakra, which awakens their Mangekyou, is what produces the Susanoo, even if you remove the eyes are not what's connected to the Susanoo. It's the new chakra that's created when you undergo the Mangekyou Sharingan transformation. That new chakra that is created from the suffering that ignites your Mangekyou is the Susanoo. And you can't get rid of that chakra. The only way to get rid of that chakra is to make the Uchiha who has it stop breathing. Born from the nose, born from the breath, right? Born from the sniffles of Izanagi's suffering and his traumatic experience, his turmoil. So, in Uchiha, being able to use the Susanoo without their Mangekyou Sharingan active isn't impossible. And we've actually seen this time and time again. Literally the first time we saw a Susanoo activated, Itachi used it. And Itachi didn't even have his Sharingan active. He was literally blind. He was literally white-eyed, like he couldn't see, but he still approached Sasuke with his Susanoo. He still blocked Kirin with his Susanoo, with the chakra that is, or that births your Mangekyou, right? So, when Madara says only the true power of an Uchiha comes about when their two Sharingan are together, the true power of the Mangekyou is born when the both eyes are together. That's because both eyes, Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, both gods that were born from the eyes, were born before the Susanoo, right? You can only acquire the Susanoo if both eyes have been awakened, if both eyes have been born. Now, with Sasuke, right, I'm scared that Kishimoto and the writing team for Boruto will probably retcon this, and since Sasuke doesn't have two Sharingan, they might remove his Susanoo from his power set, right? Because Naruto doesn't have a Kyuubi, he doesn't have Kurama, so he can't enter a giant chakra avatar. So they might nerf Sasuke to be on an equal playing field with Naruto. And if that is the case, then it becomes a huge plot hole. But until we see Sasuke utilize the Susanoo or not, or we get some statements saying that he cannot use the Susanoo anymore, this is not a plot hole. This is literally backed up by the origin story in the Japanese mythos, which inspired Susanoo, the ability, right? So, to recap, your Susanoo is not dependent on your eyes themselves. It's not directly tied to your eyes, right? Like with Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, where you need to initiate eye contact for those abilities to connect with your target. The Susanoo is born from the nose or from the breath that you carry after you've awakened that Mangekyou Sharingan. So even after the eyes are null and void, they go blind, or even if they're removed, as long as you are still alive, as long as you're breathing, you still have the chakra that was awakened that transformed your eyes into Mangekyou. And that's why Madara and Itachi, Shisui, and possibly Sasuke can still use their Susanoo, even though they don't have two sets of Mangekyou Sharingan, right? So let me know what you guys are thinking. Do you think the reason that Madara was able to use his Susanoo, even though he didn't have eyes, is because he still has the chakra that was formed, that transformed his eyes into Mangekyou Sharingan to begin with? And that leftover chakra is what powers the Susanoo. Now note, he couldn't use the perfect Susanoo, or he didn't. He couldn't use the Susanoo in its fullest form, but when he did, his Susanoo still had legs, it was still humanoid, it was still armored up, it was beyond the skeletal state. So if we see Sasuke in the future utilizing his Susanoo, it should be on par with what Madara displayed, having no eyes, if not stronger, because Sasuke still has one eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. But yes, like I was saying, not a plot hole, backed up by the lore, backed up by the Japanese mythology. Probably the canonical answer that Kishimoto would give us if he took the time to explain this one incident that had everyone in the community baffled and going batshit crazy, screaming plot holes, the war arc is poorly written. No, my man just had hella chapters to go and he knew he had to make Boruto, so he wasn't wasting time explaining how he could use Susanoo without the eyes. But let me know if this explanation does it for you. I'm gonna close out the video here. I'm your mans, the Grass Ninja, signing off. Peace.